Once again, good evening, everyone. Now we'll be moving ahead with our next session, which is what I learned while working with Rich and Famous. And for that, I would request Mr. Harish Thawani, founder of the Indus Club, and Mr. Aditya Garge, founder Equalify and Privexes. A big round of applause for both of them.
Hi. So good evening and thank you for continuing to be here in this room even after tea time. So that itself is tells me that yes, maybe we've chosen the topics and speakers right, because this kind of participation at 4 o'clock is very very rare. So thank you. I'm going to keep this session as a rapid fire round with someone I have had a privilege of knowing for the last few years. And on a professional level and a personal level, I've been very, very inspired with whatever he's achieved, whatever he's built on his own terms. So Harish, thank you for joining in.
Thank you
The
for inviting me.
session, as we discussed, the slightly an offbeat session from all the sessions that we have had in the day. And the idea behind having this session here was, like I mentioned, Harish, that Equalify sessions are all about catering to the BFSI community. And in an event like this, where maximum participation is from the wealth and asset management professionals, I've always had this pet peeve working with this community for so many years that this community doesn't really spend as much effort and time in their image management as they do in their technical education. Somehow I believe wealth managers can do so much more better if they just understand that how they come across, how they behave, what kind of unconventional ways they take can get them faster and much ahead in their journeys than doing the same vanilla stuff which thousands of other wealth managers are trying to do. So, as an educationist, I've always believed that, and I've seen a lot of such cases where people have built brands and businesses much bigger in much shorter time just by doing things differently. And I thought this could be like one offbeat session where we get someone like Harish to teach us a few, tricks of the trade in terms of how do you build a business with the rich and famous. So thank you so much, Harish, for
Thank you,
joining in.
Aditya.
You've had a wonderful career trajectory, starting from PR and media, then building up your own media channel, sports channel, creating Netflix 10 years before schedule. I mean, some Netflix equivalent 10 years ahead of time, and then dabbling in multiple businesses yourself and investing many more businesses as an investor, and finally in the recent past building a very very exclusive community of membership community at the Indus Club. So, first, to start with, I'll quickly like to know, hear more about from you in terms of how your career has been, and has it been like has there been a plan, or has it been completely fluid in terms of whatever you build over the years? So, just a quick recap on your career, and then we go on to the questions that I have for you.
Thank you, Aditya. If I have to disclose my age, this is going to be a very long story about how my career developed. But I think it's a combination of both. There was a plan. I always wanted to be in advertising, media, performing arts, basically softer skills than softer products than manufactured products. And many things happened by accident. Sometimes you don't visualize having done something. For example, I'm an investor with my brother in a bunkering business in Dubai, something I don't understand. It's by accident. My brother asked me, would you like to invest? I said, chalo, bhai ka business hai. And it's actually been the outperformer in the family. That's the business that has done the best. That's accident. I don't understand the business much. I didn't plan it. It just happened. But I would say that mostly it's planned. Few things are by accident, but mostly it's planned. And you're right. Sometimes you think of an idea ahead of its time. It's too far ahead of its time. The market's not ready, or the technology supporting it is not ready. We tried, for example, a brand called Showtime Video in the late 2000s. That's 7, 8 years before Netflix was born in its present avatar. And after 3, 4 years of losing money, our institutional investors ran out of patience and shut it down. If they'd stayed the course, maybe we would have been at least a desi version of Netflix, if not Netflix Global. So there are lessons to be learned in that as to getting your timing roughly right in terms of when the market is ready for a product or a service. But I'm sure you didn't call me to share my life story.
So basically, we want to hear from you in terms of what have been your learnings while working with the rich and famous. And where I'm talking about rich and famous, I'm not only talking about the rich. I'm also talking about guys who are super achievers in their own respective fields.
Right.
So what have been your key learnings while working with them?
I think working with a lot of famous sports person in India, cricketers in particular, across the world in other sports too, a lot of people who became movie stars, some were already movie stars when we worked with them. I think the two key learnings from, and I'm going to divide the answer into two parts. What's the learning for service providers who provide services to them, and what's the life learning for somebody like me? So the life learning, whether in conversation with a Tendulkar or a Ganguly or a Dravid in particular, I must say, that inevitably there was a clear vision in their heads, which in business too we know that you need a clear vision of where you want to take your business. But they had a clear vision in their heads about what they wanted to be in terms of their sporting career. Dravid was very clear he didn't want to be a bowler. He didn't want to be an opening batsman. He was very clear that he wanted to be a obdurate batsman, not a flashy batsman. And then there are two things that supported that. Immense perspiration that goes into preparing to achieve that vision. The acquisition of skill sets. And that's, I think, an important lesson that everybody in business has mostly imbibed, but not everybody follows. Are you constantly improving your skill sets to be able to deliver to your customers' expectations? In the case of a famous sports person, the customer is the fans, and eventually their employer, whether it's a cricket board or a IPL team or a English Premier League team. But the second and the more important thing I think that I learned from them is the focus of being in the moment. And by that, I mean that relentless focus that is required in being in that moment. At the time when the bowler is bowling at you, that single-minded focus on the ball that is being bowled at you, what you want to achieve on that, and after that to switch off. And every famous cricketer has told me this, that if we continued to focus throughout a 6-hour session, whether it's ODI cricket or Test cricket, we'll collapse. So you play one ball, you're maybe at the non-strikers, and you switch off. You're not at the high level of concentration, which is, I think, a lesson for us in business too. You can't be relentless in 9 hours, 8 hours of focus every day, whether you're in business development, which is why day traders can't maintain a momentum beyond a few hours. Somewhere they'll snap, they'll make a bad error of judgment, because if you were trying to trade for 12 hours, you won't last. And I think that focus is what sets aside the great achievers from the not so great achievers. And we've seen this, I don't want to leave this room and be beaten up by some friends, but we've seen, particularly in cricket, so many enormous talents got wasted along the way. I think everybody over here has followed cricket in some measure or the other, so it's an easy learning. But I'll give you an example of a person that's not easily comes to mind. Everyone, I presume, has heard of Ambati Rayudu? Yeah. Now, when Ambati Rayudu was 19, Lakshman told me that he'll be the next big thing. And Lakshman was convinced that Ambati Rayudu had the potential to reach where Tendulkar has reached. And we had just entered the player management business. We used to represent Lakshman for a short duration. He said, meet this guy. So my colleague who was setting up that player management division and I personally flew down. They were in a camp in Bangalore and met Ambati to say, we want to sign you up to represent you. And when we came away from that meeting, I told my colleague Yannick, who's another success story, by the way, that there's something wrong about this kid. I just don't get a good feeling. His talent is enormous, but he was already distracted. And we've all seen what happened to his career. There's a genuine, magnificent talent who just never fulfilled his potential. He was out of the wilderness, then joined the Rebel League, then came back to the fold, then walked out on one fine day, said, I quit cricket. And that lack of focus, which is why he's now 32 or 33, I think. And nobody thinks of Ambati Rayudu as one of the top 10 cricketers India has produced over the last 1 decade. So I think losing that focus is an important aspect of it. But the second part of your question, what's the lesson in it? for any of us who provide services, particularly so many of you must be dealing with famous TV stars, cine stars, sports stars in providing wealth management services or family trust services or whatever else, custodian services to them. I think it's commonly not understood that there are two aspects of managing expectations from celebrities. One, they want the same focus on them as they have devoted in their own career. They don't want to feel that the person managing their whatever wealth, let's say a relationship director, is also handling 40 other clients. Now, I don't know your industry well enough. I do have wealth managers, but I don't know whether the relationship manager with me is managing 10 other people or 40. I don't care as long as I get time with him or her. But that celebrity cares. He wants to feel that there's a laser focus and enough bandwidth on him or her. And the second aspect of it is to build a relationship fairly early with them. Because by the time they've achieved superstardom, everybody is cousin, brother, everybody is at their door pitching all kinds of things. And as I think Aditya rightly pointed out, and as a customer of the wealth management industry, sometimes I feel that there's a lack of clear branding. What does the brand stand for? And in the world of advertising, we are all very clear that each brand stands for something. If you take simple things, Thanda matlab Coca-Cola. In the old days, when we were kids, Thanda piyega means Coke piyega. So Thanda matlab Coca-Cola is not a random line. It's a deep insight into what the brand stood for. So when I ask myself, IIFL means what? I believe IIFL has changed their brand recently. Avendus Wealth means what? What does it mean to me? To me, Avendus means a successful investment bank catering to the technology sector, specializing in the technology sector. To me, that's what it means. So when I hear Avendus Wealth, I'm say, okay, so it's an add-on. No, it's a spin-off. It's like Diet Coke, Coke Black, or Coke Zero, or whatever. That their core skill lies in, and I understand that in banking and financial services, the parent brand matters so much that everything is an extension of that. So whether it's Deutsche Bank or whether it is Morgan Stanley, the investment bank, the mutual funds, the AMCs, the AIFs, everything will be under the same parent brand name. I understand and acknowledge that. Yet there is room to create sub-brands which stand distinct, because a great investment bank is of no consequence to me when I'm asking them to manage my wealth. You know, it's a completely different set of services. And when I look at the subsector of, and I'll divide the rich and famous, because here's an interesting statistic for you. This morning I did a phone call with, knowing that Aditya was going to trap me into speaking today, with two people who are far more deeply embedded in the celebrity management setup than I ever was, and said, let's do a quick maths on South film stars, Hindi film stars, and famous cricketers. Let's just do quick maths in the top 100 ka net worth kitna hoga. And we came to a number of about 50,000 crores. And I told myself, as you know, one of my mentors and important clients and life mentors is Harsh Mariwala. Now I know Harsh's lead company, Marico, has got a 60,000 crore market cap. I think the family controls over 70%. So one person has a combined net worth of all these top 100 celebrities. And why is it therefore worth the wealth management industries to go after that segment when chasing one or two people in whose family net worth is almost equivalent to this whole subsector? I think the answer to that lies is what's in our human nature. We all want to do great things for great people and be acknowledged for it. But the opportunity in branding lies over here, and the lesson comes to us from the sports industry itself. I don't know how many of you follow the European football system, which is highly regulated. In Europe, you cannot represent a player unless you're an accredited agent with FIFA. So it's a bit like mutual funds have to be approved by, and now even real estate agents have to be RERA registered. That's only registration. Here there's actual accreditation. So you can fail an exam and not get accreditation. Only an accredited agent can represent a footballer in Europe to transact business. Now it gives you an insight about what is the requirement of managing that person's career. Why accreditation? Because football careers over there can make you $1 billion between on-field and off-field in your playing career. I mean, Ronaldo and people are clearly worth more than that. And it requires expertise to be able to manage that. Now, the insight into that is if, for example, XYZ, whoever, top 5 wealth management firm in India created a division with laser focus only on managing non-industrial, non-institutional celebrity wealth. I think there's a clear opportunity over there. Let's just say whoever, ABC Wealth. ABC Wealth creates ABC Star. I'm just throwing you a name, not the actual, which tells you that that brand is intended to assist self-made career professionals out of the creative industries, sports industries, performing arts, etc., who don't have time to employ a bunch of, sort of, let's say, family office, unless they're retired and then they start creating, 2-3 people in their family, but they never get the best help. I think there's a significant opportunity, and, rewinding back in time, the internet era has made everybody better informed on wealth management or what products are available, etc. But you'd be surprised how little time most celebrities spend on trying to acquire that knowledge. Very, very few film stars and cricketers that I've met have actually got serious business acumen. And we all know now with the figures that the IPL auctions reveal what some of them are worth and will continue to be worth. I mean, their earning capacity is generally for a 10 to 15 year period in terms of active earnings. And most of the year they are either playing, practicing, shooting for an ad film or whatever. Who's managing their wealth? One of you is managing their wealth. But there's a serious aggregation opportunity, and that's a high referral industry. If you do well for one particular cricketer, you're bound to be able to persuade them to get you referrals. And if there's one takeaway apart from branding, which Aditya mentioned, that one takeaway I'd like to share with you is catch them young. Take them when, I'll give you an example. All of you have by now heard of Arshdeep Singh. 2 years back, if I'd asked all of you about Arshdeep Singh, few would have said, yeah, that fellow who plays for, which IPL team does he play for? Even that I won't get an easy answer today. But 2 years back, almost nobody would have been able to, some would have named Arshdeep Singh but said, oh, we don't know which IPL team he's playing for. Today, Arshdeep Singh is a potential 15-20 crore a year earner in the IPL. Potential, maybe, I don't know what his current contract is. Plus, he's an India A Central contract. He's what, 19, 20, 21, I think. So he's got 10, 15 years of active earning potential. If you look at deploying his wealth today, over a period of time, this young boy could be worth 400-500 crores. And that's an important client to have. And he doesn't have time or expertise to manage it. Now, somebody is already at his door. I don't think it's any of you. But somebody is already at his door. And very often what happens in this sector is that there's a childhood buddy, who's a confidant. And that childhood buddy would say, Arey, tu ruk na yaar, mere bhai ke cousin ka, somebody is the branch manager of some important bank, whatever, XYZ bank. Main usko bulata hu. So that chap lands up, he manages the relationship, the early funds go to them saying, acha, itna mutual fund mein dalna hai. They may not bring the cutting edge expertise that all of you bring to the table, but they've built the relationship at a very early stage, and it's very difficult to wean them away. You can wean a portion away, but you'll never wean the whole portion away. And like the IPL teams and the football teams in the West go on a scouting mission, they actually have scouts in each zone looking for young players, 17, 18, whom they can sign up for 10 lakhs, which is the minimum for the IPL, and then nurture them over a period of time so that they become gold mines in their hands. To my mind, one of you needs to tie up with those IPL scouts and say, tell me who the next superstars are. I'd like to start advising them now when they're young. And trust me, I have always found reciprocity in that industry. Many people feel that film stars, cricketers, famous people are fickle in their loyalties. I don't agree. I believe that if you are involved with them at a fairly young age, giving them proper advice, not advice intended to make a quick profit and move on, I think you will find the reciprocity over a period of time. it takes a long time for these people to get rid of confidence that something serious has to happen. Otherwise they tend to stick with the advisors they brought on, whether it's a, my long-standing lawyer Anil Menon, who accepted a judgeship in the High Court, so I lost his services. I'd introduced him to Jaya Bachchan once he needed some contract date. She liked him. She introduced him to Amit ji. He became Amit's lawyer. Somebody introduced him to Amir Khan. He became Amir Khan's lawyer. Somebody introduced him. So that whole film industry, started. Then Sony Pictures, 100 times bigger company than us. One day they rang me up and say, "Yeah, you're using Anil Menon. How do you find him?" I said, "Yeah, he's my childhood buddy and he's been my lawyer for 20 years. They said, "We like to retain him. You have any objection?" I said, "No, we don't have any conflict." So he has retained counsel, and very difficult for a large multinational to take an individual boutique. They'll normally go to the AZBs or firms of that size. So it tells you that this industry values relationships. And if you're in with one of them, you could be in with the next 20 of them. Sorry, long-winded answer to a short question.
You're hitting upon some very, very critical points, and I would have loved to have this conversation when we had drinks in hand rather than the mic. But, but I mean, just in interest of time, I think you answered most of the things which I had in mind to ask you. But let's say a parting note in terms of how do they build? If someone has to build this, you built a fantastic proposition in Indus Club, and I'm sure. I mean, at least I know of 3 other clubs who are trying to do this in Mumbai itself, and they failed miserably. When we and they started around the same time. So I'm sure there was some do's and don'ts when you were planning the entire structure, framework, eligibility criteria, the look and feel of it, and exact. So can we draw out some suggestions for this community here in terms of how do they build a business? I mean, if they have to work around and with this rich and famous guys, what are the key things that they need to keep in mind while building the? So you talked about branding and you talked about focus and all that, but any other critical elements that they need to keep in mind?
I'd say the one word, because it's not easy to draw a comparison between in an industry like what I'm doing now, a private members club, and financial services. Two slightly different set of. But there's one common thing I think that shines through is passion. And in your industry where personalized attention, I'm talking of wealth management in particular, where personalized attention is extremely important. I think the passion needs to shine through. Your client needs to feel that you're passionate about their wealth multiplying and multiplying faster than other people's wealth with your advice. And that relationship management, the passion, I think, is the number one quotient. Obviously, sincerity and honesty is given because nobody is going to work with somebody who's not a trusted financial advisor. That trust factor has to be built. But assuming that all you high quality wealth management firms are equally trustworthy in the eyes of your clients, finally what's going to show through is who's more passionate. Every time we would go and pitch against, in my old days at Nimbus Sport, where we went on to become the world's #1 cricket management agency, we pitched against global giants like IMG, who were 40, 50 times our net worth, Disney, 1,000 times our net worth. Every cricket board that we signed up, and at one stage we controlled 60% of the global market. It's the passion. When we hired people, we hired them only on the grounds of saying, which sports do you play? Can you name 5 footballers? What's this rule in rugby? If they knew, what do you do when you wake up in the morning? Is the first question we used to ask them. Okay. If the answer was, I check all the overnight sports scores, I said, chal andar aaja. Hired. So as a wealth manager, what do you do when you wake up in the morning? Do you check your top 10 clients' portfolios and see, on a week-to-week basis, how are they performing? Would you call that each of your, you obviously can't call 100 customers every week, but you call them once a week or message them and saying, I'm noticing something happening in your portfolio. I'd like to have a quick chat to see whether we can make an adjustment. As a customer of the wealth management industry, even I don't see that. I get my monthly report. I'll occasionally get a call, and I'm not the biggest portfolio, but I doubt I'm the smallest portfolio either. And occasionally I'll get a call trying to, if pardon my using the language, chitkaw me some structured product, you know. And typically my standard response is the only people who make money in a structured product is the person who structured it and the person who sold it. Okay. So when you say it's capital, when you say it's capital protected, I know my capital is protected, minus some 2% will go in the brokerage. So I'll get 98 rupees back after 21 months if the Nifty then is between so and so range and so and so range. So we've all made mistakes in structured products. I'm sure there are great structured products out there. But setting the trust factor aside, I asked myself, okay, where's the passion? And interestingly enough, of late, some wealth management firms that have come and pitched to us, my wife and I find that passion shining through. I think the new boutiques are identifying that as a weak spot in the traditional. And the majority of wealth management firms, CEOs and or founders are members of the Indus Club. Some of them are personal friends. And I don't see passion. I actually think it's a missing element. You know, are you looking after my money as passionately as you're looking after your own money? If the answer to that is yes, I want to put the money in your hands. And so branding aside, I would say devote, especially with the celebrities. And I'm sure the same with the ultra high net worth individuals. Why would somebody who's a multi-billionaire dollar terms, okay, deal with a wealth management firm that he doesn't find? He or she has probably got people in their own family office who deal in turn with advisors. But still, who are the ones who get across with them when they're doing individual investments? And I can speak for some family offices that occasionally talk to me about when they're investing in media ventures or luxury product ventures. I find that mostly they are going by a young entrepreneur's passion for the product or service and say what shone through was his or her passion. So if they are investing because they see passion, then they need to see that passion coming through from wealth management firms too. And there are RMs who have fantastic passion. I've seen that. I had an RM in the old days at Deutsche Bank. I could call him at any time of the night or day and say, Babu, I need this transacted first thing in the morning, and it would be done. He had that passion for the service. Deutsche then sold the business to Morgan, and Morgan sold it to Stanchart. By then, there was no P and no passion. Left, so yeah, we took our money elsewhere. We said, yeah, it's rotating chairs. Yeah. These guys are just building a book and selling it off to somebody else. So there was a lack of passion coming through in that. Saying that you're not passionate about your customers, you're passionate about quickly building a book, then selling it to the next person and moving on with it. And which is, there are some great firms, IIFL, Kotak's wealth management business. No disrespect meant to people whom I don't know. There's Sanctum, there's Avendus. So many great firms going around, and so many more great firms that I hope to get to know in this room. But I would say that Virat Kohli, whom some of you must be dealing with, Tendulkar, whom some of you must be dealing with, the common thing I find about them, and they want to know, are you dedicated to me? Are you providing me trustworthy, unique advice? And are you passionate about delivering? And do I know you for many years, or have you just arrived now that I've got such a big kitty saying we'll handle it for you? These might be some of the insights that I can share with you that may be of use to you. But those of you who are shy of asking for referrals, if you have a celebrity customer, ask her or him to say, Babu, refer me to some people. And you will be surprised, it produces results.
I'm sure. Fantastic. I'm going to stop there because I want audience to have at least few minutes if they have some questions for you before we wind up the session. Okay. Yes, Tariq, I can see your hand going up.
Hi.
I'm going to wait for the mic, please.
You can have mine. I'm a loud mouth. I can be heard without.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
He's getting a mic.
Thanks. I have a very generic question. Like you very rightly said that you build passion, you have a focused approach, you identify the sector you want to service. Maybe it's a film fraternity, maybe it's a sports celeb. But what happens when you don't have a contact? How do you find your first contact? How do you break in?
In the celebrity industry?
In any industry for that matter. Because what we've seen in the past is that there are many young entrepreneurs who come up with a vision, who come up with a focus.
Right.
They are absolutely passionate of what they do.
Right.
And over a period of 1 year, 2 years, when they don't find a breakthrough, their savings start drying up And that's the time when they start diversifying into other products which are low hanging or other services which are mass, and the entire vision of the organization changes. You may not have a anchor pulling you, you may not have a private equity investment in you, you may not have a godfather to guide you. What for those kind of people who are passionate and hardworking?
Are you referring to a startup in the wealth management space?
In general, specifically here, since we're talking about wealth management space,
Yeah.
yes, but otherwise also.
So I profess that I'm not an expert on networking, which is a common tool used to be able to build your business network, especially in a sort of person-to-person pitching. I'm actually not. Some people say that I'm one of the best networkers they know, but I think that's an incorrect way. So my way of networking was engage with people. Engage with as many people as you can openly, and some of them will like your ideas. Now, nowadays there's a structured networking events all over the city. I mean, this itself is a knowledge come networking event. So you will meet people, and I mean, my advice to youngsters has been, don't start pitching at networking events. Networking events are meant to network. Network, if people say, and I used to get this as a youngster, remember when I was a youngster pre-internet, pre-LinkedIn. And I'll give you Harsh Mariwala example. He was my very first client in Bombay. At that time, Bombay Oil Industries, sometime in the 90s. Now, you're going to laugh if I tell you this story. You'll say, no, yaar, ye ullu bana rahega. Aisa ho nahi sakta hai. I called him on those old days, MTNL phone lines at his office. Said, I am so-and-so, and I'm an agent for, I don't know how many of you are 50 plus. Those who are would remember TV show called Nukkad, used to come on Doordarshan. Yeah. So I said, I'm the agent. I just started up my business, and I used to act as an agent, distributor in wealth management parlance. And I'd got those Nukkad guys to appoint me as an agent to help them monetize the show. The show was running, but they wanted new clients with. So I said, I can get you sponsorship of this show. He said, okay, come to Willingdon Club at 6 o'clock in the evening, we'll talk. Willingdon Mahalakshmi, where I was not a member, he was. I went there, and believe it or not, first time he's met me, he closed the deal, he'd brought a checkbook with him to give me a signing amount. He's never met me. We don't have a contract. Bombay is full of con men. I could have been a con man. But he did that. Why did he trust me? I don't know. I keep asking him till today. And he says, your passion shone through. He actually used that. He said, you were passionately representing a product which I knew. Nukkad was a big hit. And I want to associate my brand with it. Baki wo paise tumhare haath mein diye, I trusted you. That trust factor was there. He gave me a small signing amount saying, okay, here's my confirmation of that show. And I tell youngsters who are pitching is that if you build a trust factor and your passion shines through, 1 out of 5, 1 out of 10 people whom you're pitching to is bound to, unless you have a lousy idea. And so often we all get youngsters coming and pitching to us with an idea which we're not convinced by. In our perception, it's lousy. And if 10 or 15 or 20 people tell you, Baba, this is not going to work, maybe it's time to review the idea. No, it's not that every idea has to be great. And so many youngsters recognize that today. I see that in my own nephew. He came to me with some projects and, Chachu, will you invest in this? He pitched to me. I didn't like it. I said, you know what? I'll get 3 more doors opened for you. If one of them says yes, then count me in. Everybody said no. He said, okay, I'll continue with my job. I won't launch a business. So I hope that partially answers your question. They used to, old saying we used to have, when we were, that if you knock on many doors, your chance, Tom Hopkins used to say that, no, target for activity, don't target for sales. Knock on 10 doors, 4 will open, 1 might succeed. And if you knock more intelligently, then success is bound to follow, no?
Completely agree. Completely agree. Guys, quickly, if there's any other question, otherwise, we can always have this session at Indus Club.
We can.
Or an evening someday.
We'd be happy to. I didn't want to do a brand plug, but tertiary answer to that is, where do people hang out with to make new networking connections? A lot of them hang out in the Indus Club bar. But it won't be those youngsters who are starting up, because we have a certain qualifying criteria for admitting members.
I'm sure.
But thank you everybody for not embarrassing me by asking me harder questions. And thank you, Aditya.
No, thank
Yeah.
you so much. Pleasure to have you.
Privileged
I'm
to
sure-
meet so many people from this fascinating industry.
No, wait. It's called for a longer session, but yeah, rest of time.